Hello, my name is Peter LaBarbera. I'm president of Americans for Truth About Homosexuality. We're a single-issue group dedicated to opposing the homosexual, bisexual, transgender movement, and we're excited to be here for our fourth dinner lecture series on the homosexual issue, and we have a wonderful speaker today, Arthur Goldberg of JONAH, who I'll introduce in a second, but before I do, I just have a couple announcements. First of all, when Arthur talks, he will take questions during the talk, so you can raise your hand, and we are filming for YouTube, so if you want to ask a question, you can do that during the talk. We'll also have another Q&A afterwards. Some brief tidbits about Americans for Truth, what we're up to. I wanted to bring this out. This is a book by Kevin Jennings, who's a homosexual activist, called Mama's Boy, Preacher's Son. This is the library copy I got, and you can see I've got notes all over it. Kevin Jennings has been appointed by President Obama to be the director of the Safe Schools bureaucracy in the Department of Education. This book is incredible, and the reason I wanted to mention it is that sort of the private dysfunction of people's lives, of many homosexuals we found have had troubled upbringings, it's outworking in the public policy realm. Kevin Jennings is a vicious anti-Christian, a bigot. He has said the F word, F-U, in a church, describing his attitude towards religious people, the religious right, as he called it. He said drop dead, in a church, mind you. Of course, if that were conservative, he'd be out of the job. But because it's a Democratic administration and the media doesn't really care, they're allowed to get away with these things. But I was, even knowing how radical Kevin Jennings was, I was astonished to read about his life, and I'll just bring up one point on pages 14 and 15. Kevin Jennings' father died on his 8th birthday. And that's tragic, of course. The media is so busy saying that people are born that way that they don't want to bring out these troubled upbringings, which of course have their outworkings. And I'll let Arthur talk about that. Also, I wanted to mention that aftah has gotten onto the YouTube. Now we've got our 3rd YouTube up, but it was just censored. We had videotape from a very raunchy, radical event in New York where men were walking around nude on the streets of Manhattan, whipping each other, engaged in these awful sadomasochistic acts publicly. Our intern, Kurt Jaros, we took the time to cover up the nudity for the film. We put it up on YouTube with all the nudity covered, and after about 500 hits on the YouTube, we learned, we got a notice from YouTube saying that we had violated their community standards. We don't think it was, we're hoping it wasn't the nudity because we had taken it off, and there were much worse raunchy videos that are still up on YouTube. But one of YouTube's, which is owned by Google, one of their criteria is that if you express hatred towards groups of people based on various criteria, including sexual orientation, that is one of their criteria. Of course, they didn't inform us which one of the community standards, or several, that we violated. So it's almost worse than the government. You get told that you violated some standard, you don't know what the standard is. Kurt couldn't call YouTube or Google because there's no phone number, there's not even an email listed. And it's just Orwellian, and we know that Google is very deep in liberal politics. They march in gay pride parades, as they did in Chicago. And so we'll keep you informed of that. But without further ado, let me introduce Arthur Goldberg, who I've known about for years, admiring his work, but I've just gotten to know him better in advance of this talk tonight. Arthur is a certified relationship specialist, which I never heard that term until just now, and a co-founder and executive director of JONAH, which stands for the Jews Offering New Alternatives to Homosexuality. It is a non-profit international organization dedicated to helping men and women overcome the homosexual lifestyle. And Arthur just has a tremendous reputation among most people in the pro-family movement, and so I'm excited to have him here. In addition to his work with JONAH, Arthur is Secretary-Treasurer of NARTH, which is the National Association for Research and Therapy of Homosexuality, which is the premier secular opposition research group opposed to the politically correct side of the issue. And Arthur is the author of a new book called Light in the Closet, Torah, Homosexuality, and Power to Change, which we'd encourage you all to purchase here, and he'll have a signed copy for you. Please help spread the word on this book. We need people of Arthur's stature out as much as possible to get the word out that, yes, people can change. So, Arthur, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm really I'm really pleased to be here. Like Peter said, I've heard a lot about Peter for many, many years, so I guess it's kind of a mutual admiration society in that respect. He's truly one of the courageous people that is out there willing to basically try to explain the truth to people. And unfortunately, what we have all too often seen is really an effort to keep the truth from really being understood and known. And of course, when you talk about that in the context of this subject matter, the biggest area is the myth and the lie that people are born gay. There is no such thing as a gay gene. There are a number of studies that disprove it. In fact, the easiest way perhaps to explain it is say, if you had, for example, a set of identical twins, that are purely, and they're identical. If they're identical twins, that means that they share the same gene pool. So if they share the same gene pool, and one twin is gay, I'm going to ask you here in the audience, what percentage of the other twins should be gay? Thank you, 100%. Well, what's really interesting is the first study done in this subject matter was done by a professor out at Northwestern University, and he did a very, very significant blind random study. He basically advertised in the Blade and the Advocate and a number of other of the gay publications, which is exactly the opposite of a blind random study, and said, well, I want all these identical twins to come forward, and so I can study you. If you have twin brothers, please, or sisters, please come, please come see me. Well, in doing his study, what he found was that where one twin was gay, 52% of the other twin was gay, meaning that 48% were not gay. Those kind of numbers are nowhere near the 100%, which clearly disproves, and this study, by the way, was done by someone who was very gay affirmative. Challenged on this study, other studies have been done subsequently. And perhaps the most important one is the one down in Australia, which was truly done as a blind study, a blind random study. And let me just finish this, okay? And then I'll.
That's just asking, was it Guttmacher?
No, it was Bailey. And the study down in Australia actually came out with a figure of below 10%. And this was done off the Australian Registry of the Twin Study. So, I mean, it's nowhere near 100%. And there's other studies out there. There's probably 4 or 5 studies that have actually done with identical twins. So there's absolutely nothing along those lines that really proves anything. There's other studies, but of course what happens is when the studies first come out, your mainstream media will headline, gay gene found. Or they'll say that this is a given. Everyone knows that this is done. And the problem with this, consistently, is that there's another study that was done, which is the hypothalamus study, where a study was done, there was autopsies done on people who had died of AIDS. And when the study was done, it was very clear that there was no control group. The people all died of AIDS, so you have no knowledge of whether they were gay or they had a blood transfusion or whatever it may be. And inevitably, when the study came out showing that there was an enlarged hypothalamus in the brain, they basically said, of course, gay gene found. Again, trumpeted in all the newspapers. And again, the truth has nothing to do with that, and there's no control group, there's no way of knowing it, etc. I mean, there are study after study.